Hello everybody and welcome to this today, our first ever SafeStack Academy public seminar. My name's Laura Bell, I'm the founder of SafeStack, and I'm joined today by some awesome panelists. I'm going to cover them in just a second and give them a chance to introduce themselves. A couple of little bits of housekeeping and things first though. Firstly, please remember this session is being recorded and we share them afterwards, so just bear that in mind when interacting. It's always worth remembering who's going to remember things on the internet. There are 75 of your colleagues out there today who are watching along live, and many more may follow afterwards. If you have questions, feel free to say something in the box down the bottom. You can use the Ask a Question feature just on your bottom bar to ask anything you like, and we'll be checking those as we go along. Oh, I'm just going to mute some of the other people. There we go. Other things you can do, we have polls at the bottom. Now we've put some polls in to start with. We'd love for you to just spend the 2 minutes and have a couple of votes. It helps us understand where the community's at and what we're doing today. So no pressure, we're not marking your answers, but if you want to join in and have a look at our polls, that would be really great. So have a chat in the side if you like. We'll be looking for questions and answering them as we go along. And I'm going to get into the meat of this panel now by firstly introducing my panelists for today, who I am so grateful they joined us, taking time out of their day. So today we are joined by 3 voices from our community, all of which have an extensive background in the QA space, not just as professionals but in the community space too. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to start with the lovely Kate. Oh. I think you muted Kate. Okay, we might have a change of direction while Kate's microphone behaves itself, and we'll talk with Michael.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, cool. Okay, well, thanks all, and thanks for joining us on our discussion about security testing. Definitely an exciting and ever-changing and fast-paced domain. I am not a security tester. I'm an avid interest and very interested in software testing and security testing, and I come from a background where they're very security conscious. So I basically transitioned from the New Zealand Defence Force into testing, and have now moved on to consultancy in the software space. So it's really nice being able to take on my experiences and exposure from different environments, different customers, find out what's important, what people are hoping to protect, and starting conversations around protecting information. Part of what I do in the testing community is I, along with Kate and a handful of other really lovely people, we help to run the Ministry of Testing Auckland meetup group. So it's been a bit problematic with COVID breaking out, running face-to-face meetups, but we try to get people together in rooms talking about testing, be it performance, be it automation, be it security, just testing in general, and just having a nice safe space for everyone to talk and share their ideas and share their love of the industry.
Fabulous.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
We can, Kate, yes, thank you. Kate, would you like to have another go? Oh no, it's not going well today. All right, we're going to shift to Vikas, and we'll come back again.
Oh, sorry, Vikas, you're on mute.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Cool. Hey everyone, it's great to be here today. I'd like to thank Laura and the SafeStack team for providing this opportunity. It's great to be part of the community, exchange ideas. In terms of my background, I've been in the testing space for about 10 years now. Over the last 4 or 5 years, more into leadership. In my current company, I'm the QA practice manager, so we've got a bunch of QAs within the Scrum teams, and we're working with in terms of the security side of things. We work with the security team and constantly look at how we can bring those practices into testing. So I'd be keen to exchange some ideas. and hopefully they're valuable. Yeah, looking forward. Thank you.
Okay, apologies everyone for the technical gremlins, but we are working through them. The lovely Kate will join us as soon as she is able. Can you hear us at all, Kate? No. Okay, so I think we might just gently roll into the questions and we'll adapt around this. Nothing like doing a live public seminar that's being recorded for you to find all of the flaws in your software. And with an entire house full of software testers in the audience, the irony is not lost on me at all. Now, you'll notice that the people we have on our panel were not security testers, any of us. And that's important to set the scene for today. We're not saying, hey, we know how to do this, we've done it for years and you should look at us. What we're here to say is we believe in its importance, but we think it's challenging. And so what we want to get into today is how we can facilitate getting security into our testing practice, the challenges that are there right now, what we're already doing, and where we would like to see this go in terms of direction. It's a really vibrant space, it's an exciting space, but for many of us, we are trying to test a lot of different things, not just security. So, I have a whole list of questions, but what I'm going to do is we'll do this kind of see how it goes and kind of adapt as people answer questions. So what I'd like to start with for both of you in terms of asking your experiences, have you ever been engaged with bringing any security testing to your professional practice or to your organizations? What did that include and how did that work out?
I can go, Mike, you want
to? Jump in.
Okay, cool. So I can talk a bit about my experience and my current company, Debit Success. So we're quite fortunate in that we've got a dedicated security team in the company, and it's quite nice that our management recognizes the importance of security and have invested in a security team. So one of the first things that I did once I joined the company was increase the awareness amongst the QAs in terms of security testing. And one of the ways we did that was through training, and this is in collaboration with the security team. A really good training session that we got the QAs to attend that's worked really well for us was a couple of days with SafeStack, and it was Laura. It was an in-person security testing training for 2 days. It was very hands-on, and it was for everybody, even though they didn't. It was for when you didn't really have to have background in security testing to be able to pick that up. So what that did for us was that it gave our testers an insight into security testing. Because in my experience, I've done a whole heap of functional testing back when I was doing a lot of hands-on testing. But my experience with actual security testing is very limited. And we found that was the same with the rest of the QAs in the company. Like lots of experience in lots of domains, but again, something non-functional like security testing, like perhaps similar to performance testing, not a whole lot of experience. So as soon as we did that training, it gave us an insight into, I suppose we went through the various OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities, and it just removed that barrier from thinking of security as this fearful beast, not knowing what to explore, because it was hands-on. And then after that, I suppose, I'm going on, but just stop me when you need to. But after that, we've done a bunch of things in terms of assigning a security champion in each of the Scrum teams. So we've got Scrum teams with devs, QAs, product owners, BAs, and team leads. But we've got the QA. So we've got a couple of QAs in each of these Scrum teams, and one of them have been assigned the role of a security champion. So this person's constantly keeping up to date with security stuff, training themselves. They were also part of the training. And every time there's a new feature that's being developed or an enhancement, they've along with the rest of the things that they need to look at, specifically the functional side of things, they also consciously look at the security. They do an analysis, and if necessary, they involve the security team to check if this feature needs to be tested from a security perspective. So I'd say we've done a little bit of that. Again, it's work in progress, but we've made a start. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Michael, do you have any experience in bringing security through?
Yeah, kind of similar to Vikas there, that everyone knew that security was really important, and but I guess there was that fear factor that people think that to be a security tester you have to be like a Kali Linux guru sitting in your basement with a hoodie, watching green text fly over a screen while you take down the IRD and everything else. You don't have to be a cyber criminal to be effective in security testing. In my previous role, we were working in I was working in a company that was specialized in cloud-based healthcare solutions. So this is doctors raising notes for their patients and moving them from facility to facility and having it obviously the data locked down as tightly as possible. But interestingly, we didn't have a bespoke security professional, or I say professional. All the people there were really good at what they did, but there was no security specialist, is the word I'm looking for. And the way we kind of tackled it is we just kind of changed the perspective on our user stories. Like we knew, because we had clients in the States, we had to meet FHIR and all these other standards. But you just raise a story saying, usually it's, as a user, I want to blah so I can blah. We'll just have a bit of fun with it, saying, as a criminal, I would like to access this sort of information so that I can blah. And then suddenly it's having a bit of fun around the table and trying to come up with these stories, and then some really useful stuff would come out with it. And then even just on a personal level, I just found podcasts and videos and things that helped me helped to build my awareness of what was happening around the world. So good ones I could share is like Risky Business is quite a nice one. It's an Australian-based security podcast. These aren't security testing podcasts, but largely sort of infosec and more generic. But you can look at each of the topics and each of the conversations and see how it applies to how you test your product. Malicious Life is a really nice one. It's all about like the history of data breaches and viruses and all that cool stuff. So, and I really like the way the narrative and the narration of it. He talks it through like it's a story, which is a lot of fun. Obviously, Darknet Diaries is another one that's quite popular. And Motherboard do a couple. I think Motherboard Cyber does one. Again, it's not specifically security testing, but it gives you an idea of what's happening in the world and what has happened, and kind of makes you look at your applications twice and think, well, I heard about that happening with Stuxnet or whatever. I wonder if I could do something similar with my application. And another quite nice one is introducing the Stride. What would you call it? A mnemonic. But it's a threat model, so you're basically looking at each piece of work that's going in and seeing if you can get spoofing, tampering, repudiation, so covering your tracks, information disclosure, if any data can get pulled out of the process that you're in, denial of service, if you can just shoot the thing down in flames, or elevation of privilege, if you can somehow give yourself God rights and just do whatever you like. So. I'm
going to have to tip my hat to you there, Michael. You just reeled off what Stride was without prompting. Either you're really good at double screening, or that, I salute you for that. And I'm seeing some themes here, right? Enabling the testing to happen early. To go into Jazz's question here, where are we enabling the security testing? And it's starting with those ideas, and it's starting with curiosity and building stories. And I'm going to dig into one of the questions. One of the points that was raised just a moment ago about functional requirements versus non-functional requirements and how much support we have to test them, because I think that's also related in here. Kate, can you hear us okay now?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. Welcome.
Beautiful. Thank
apologies.
you.
We got there in the end. True tester fashion.
Yes.
If you touch it, it's going to break.
100%.
Absolutely. I'm just going to get you to just introduce yourself very quickly, and then I'd love for you to share your experience of if you've brought security into your testing world before.
Well, so right now I'm a chapter area lead for quality engineering in Westpac. So we have more than 90 people, around 100 testers in Westpac. And my role is to help them, to guide them into in their craft, and security is one big part of it. I have a long story with security. Probably I started just well back in 2004 when I started my journey with as a tester. And I was one of those who just put down the corporate mail server because there was a vulnerability, and I used it to test data. So security was always my thing. But I fell in love with Troy Hunt a while ago. So he's a great person. He's an Australian guy who talks about security, but my true love came when I first met Laura at one of the conferences. And I need to...
I'm just going to pause there and say that I love the appreciation team, but no need. We'll keep it focused.
No, I'm keeping it focused, and I'm explaining it why, because Laura is able to explain you security in very, very simple words. So you can just start using straight away. Laura makes it so simple that actually you don't, just like as Mike said, you don't need to be a security megamind or pen tester to start thinking about security. It can be as simple as, making sure that you don't have elevated permissions and you cannot accidentally delete a production database. So simple as that.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. So we've got some other questions coming in from the audience, so we're going to try and kind of bring them up as they go along. So Jazz has been asking about the stages we start at and whether you bring QA along with security testing and train them as you go. I think we touched a little bit on that at the start with the story from Debit Success. Now, I'm just going to pick on that functional versus non-functional requirements. So obviously security is one of the non-functional requirements very often, and we don't often get as much time as we want, whether it's security or any other non-functional requirements, to get through it all. How do you think we can shift the focus to give more time and resource to these non-functional elements when it's the functional ones that our business is pushing?
Well, I can explain you how we were doing things in Vend and where exactly I want to try and push things in Westpac. So in Vend, we had a separate security team, pretty much what we have here in Westpac as well. So what we did, we involved our security representatives in our conversations when we were discussing some things that were potentially related to security. Funnily enough, in the Vend space, it was a quality engineer's responsibility to testers. And we had our weekly catch-ups where we invited security guys and support guys to make sure that they know what's going on, what we are working on, all the ideas. And we were proactive in saying, okay, we are coming up with this feature. Just come and join us because we need your input from the very beginning rather than, reacting at the very end. In a bank, it's a bit more complicated because security here is kind of twofold. It's business risk and technical risk, and we will talk about it a bit later. But here we are kind of reimagining the whole business, including the Internet Security Group, our security team. And that's where we will try to probably introduce the same approach when we are working on something. We will try to involve, like in Vicus's case, we most likely will involve people on the earliest stages of the project to make sure that we consider security, we consider performance. So for performance, we are now moving away from the old ways, like doing big performance testing, we are moving into monitoring. So that's exactly how you do this. You think about these things beforehand. So you think, okay, what is my perfect performance? Like what is the ideal response time for the page? And you start monitoring straight away. And you thinking about security, very simple things from the very, very beginning, just like, okay, we need to be compliant with whatever we need to be compliant with, BS11. What do we need to do to get there? Not building that in the code afterwards to be compliant, but being proactive and thinking from the security perspective from very beginning. But again, security, it's not only compliance. Security is way, way, way more, and we will talk about this later.
Absolutely. Vikas, from your point of view, how does it work in Devix Success? How do you find that balance for the NFRs?
Yeah, so in our case, the big thing that we focus on is increasing the general awareness on security. It's general security, not specifically security testing. And we do this in multiple ways. One was the training that we have for the QAs. The other thing that we do is there's a company called Ningio, and they produce these snippets, like video cartoon type snippets that are 2 minutes long. And this is everybody in the company is subscribed to this by default, and they get this in their inbox once a month. And these snippets talk about security vulnerabilities, and this is usually based on something that's happened in the real world. And it's done in a way that it's easy to understand. And what's highlighted in these videos is the impact that the security vulnerability has caused as well. So again, through Ningio videos and training from the security team, we start off by just increasing awareness. We want people to think about security, because within the dev teams, with the dev backlogs primarily being driven by the product team, who are primarily focused on shipping features out to customers, the non-functional side of things aren't at the top of their minds, like performance testing, security testing, or looking at big data, automation, improving unit testing, a bunch of things that aren't really at the top of their minds. So just by increasing awareness about security, we get people to think more about security. And what's also really worked well for us is having those security champions within each team, because as soon as it becomes somebody's responsibility, then it just doesn't get dropped off. The ball doesn't get dropped. So it's this person's responsibility to consciously think about security all the time when features are being. But they don't exclusively do security stuff. They're mostly doing functional work, but they wear the security hat every time there's a new feature or an enhancement or a bug. They're, well, is there a security aspect to this that we need to explore? And they know when to call the experts, the security team, and straight away. So we try and do this. Another thing that we've done, just answering Jazz, I suppose, is the security team have come up with an application security framework. And a big part of this framework is building this culture within the team to shift security left. And this is shifting security left and increased collaboration between the security and the dev product teams. So by having this AppSec framework in place, we've had a couple of instances where when new features were being developed in the product, we've run like a whiteboard session with the security team along with the dev team. So this is, the architect going through the architecture of the feature that we're looking at developing, along with data workflow diagrams, and then coming up with a threat model based on tribe and other mnemonics that Mike mentioned, and just basically highlighting vulnerabilities and looking at risk, prioritizing them as a team as to what we need to look at. So all of this is done in the beginning, before the features looked at. So again, a big part of the AppSec framework is not to look at security as a reactive thing right at the end, but we want to shift security left.
I'm just going to summarise a few of the things you mentioned there. There's some really great actions for people. The idea to bring the story, make it real with stories that are going on in the world, as you're getting from your videos. For us to, I'm just going to mute you, Kate, because I think we've got feedback. For us to also find champions and have that accountability, because one of the problems we have is if nobody is responsible and we assume that the greater population will just combine to take responsibility, we all know that we're all busy and we're not going to get to that. So that responsibility, that accountability is important. And I love the sound of your framework, Vikas. There are many frameworks out there, open source ones and internal ones. So if you have your own security team and you can set up your own structure internally, that's fantastic. But if you're in a smaller organization and can't, there are ways to do this too. Michael, from your world, your company's bigger, smaller, what's your experience in this space?
We're smaller, and the company part of that was even smaller still. But the problem with both functional and non-functional requirements and time is that there's never enough time for the testing in general. And even if you refine your processes as tightly as you could and somehow developed a time machine, there'd always be more requirements that get funneled in. So you're never ever going to get through the backlog of everything. And I guess building on what Vikas was saying was, first step I found was to open up the conversation to security, build that awareness. But then the big important thing to get time to get onto the security testing was to make the security testing important. So asking the what ifs, building out the scenarios, saying hey, have you heard of Equifax? And they'll say, and people say, oh yeah, they're that company that had that massive data breach. So okay, did you hear of them before the data breach? Hearing about all these organizations and how they're making the news for the wrong reasons. If you do get a chance, there's a really good course through the Association for Software Testers called the Bug Advocacy course. I think it runs for 3 or 4 weeks. It's all totally online, and it basically explains that writing a bug it's like a communication method. You're basically writing a story for your developers. So you could point out, that's where it's broken, but without having the so what. Why is it important? Why should this get put in front of you 3,000 other things that you've got on your list? How are you going to make time for this? So you really need to frame security around that. I mean, you can't, scream that the sky is falling with everything you hear, but you look at things that align closely with your company's values, that sort of thing, and talk about knock-on effects. Talk about what happens if you don't test that thing. What are the potential side effects of ignoring that security thing that you've noticed? Really, without being a doom merchant and just having people run away when you walk into a room, but putting context into the realm of security testing.
Fantastic, and I'm really loving the themes that are coming through here. We're hearing a lot about making it real, making it concrete, and having a strong why. And whether it's for security testing or any other bug that you're trying to be an advocate of, it's really crucial. It's not about finding a bug, it's about understanding and explaining why that's going to matter. And security bugs, it's really hard, because we're saying a theoretical attack situation could happen with this theoretical malicious person you've never met, and that's quite a hard story to tell. So thanks for recommending that course. The link is in the chat, and thank you Shirley from the chat for being a link champion here. She's linking everything for us. I'm just going to jump to a couple of the questions that have come from the audience here at this stage. So the first one came from Shirley, who's our link champion. With training, it's likely that QA folks can be the proxy for security professionals when writing stories. Yep, absolutely. Do you think it's better to think about security in acceptance criteria for functional stories, or better to have it as separate non-functional stories? What do we think? Keep it in with your acceptance criteria or not? Kate? You're muted. Let's see if I can pick that. Oh, you can do it yourself. If I click it, there you go. You got it.
Okay. So,
We go.
I know that I'm just probably could be hit by a storm, but I will remind you about a bit of ISTQB foundations. They say that there is functional security and non-functional security. where when we're talking about functional security, what they mean is that, for example, if you have only guest access, you shouldn't be able to do the admin rights. So technically, it's checking permissions, and it's a must in a user story, right? So again, checking permissions, it's also security. And again, if you are suspecting that you, for some reason, your code or whatever can be prone to some kind of security threats, again, you can also add it to acceptance criteria. So again, just it depends, but think about the functional security first. Think how your permissions work.
Absolutely. I think we hear this in security a lot, where our boring basics are the ones that get us a lot of the time. So that's your principle of least privilege, permissions, making sure that things are not using vulnerable versions of software, that kind of thing. So thanks, Kate. So we're prioritizing, in your case, those functional acceptance criteria, because that's the meat where you're going to be focusing. Anything different from Michael or Vikas?
Well, I guess you could tie it into your definition of done across everything, saying you have your standards of security, and say, has everything had a security check? But I guess it's one of those things that if you hammer it in too hard, people are going to take shortcuts. So that is a tricky one. Do you cover absolutely everything? I guess it really depends on what field you're in and how important security is, how important the data is that you're holding. It's a really good question. I guess a typical test to respond is it depends. But yeah, you want to you do want to build a culture of taking security seriously and meeting it to the best of your ability, without being overkill. I mean, no, tricky one. But
yeah, I suppose just echoing what Mike and Kate have said, there's no right or wrong. You could try both approaches and see what works. For us, we use mind maps for our test design, and we always have a tab called security when we're doing our test design as testers. And sometimes that tab's empty. Right at the end of the feature, there's just nothing that needs to be looked at from a security perspective, but at least it forces us to consciously think about security when we're doing our test design, along with the rest of the functional stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point there. Creating the structures so that it's prompting you to think about it as part of your test design. Even if there's nothing to say, at least you've engaged that process and thought about it. Just got another question from the audience here from James Espy. So I'm just going to hit the little button. If I like the idea of security champion, do you have ideas for others who aren't the champion to still engage with security though? It's a great question, James. Anyone from the panel like to jump in on that one?
Actually, I borrowed a brilliant idea from Laura, and that's how I engaged the other. Sorry. I'm just talking about the things that work, and actually it worked in Vend. So I, as the security team, put a whiteboard next to them, and just put their stuff that they are working on. And we saw, people are inherently curious. They were stopping at this board, they were reading what was on this whiteboard, and sometimes I saw them come in and talking to the security team. So that's one of the, if you are in a smaller company and you have a security specialist, that's a really good way to engage people. And it's just like you are nudging them. You're not telling them, you're nudging them. So that's how it works sometimes. So, and that's a trick that really worked for us.
Awesome. Now, if you like this kind of thinking, there's a great book, nothing to do with security, but called Atomic Habits, which talks about reinforcing and triggering these kind of repeated behaviors, such as thinking about security. And if you're like me and also want to learn how to go to the gym and not eat chocolate, it's great for that too. All the things you don't really want to do.
Figure that one out.
Anything from you, Michael? Any ideas for others getting more into security, even if they aren't the champion?
Well, it's something that Kate just said kind of triggered a thought in my mind. That was with all the meetups that we run, by and large, some of the most popular ones are security based. Whenever we run a introduction to security testing, or have you thought about this in security, or any security topic, it sells out in hours. People are really keen to learn about security, which is interesting. That everyone's very interested in it, but people are a bit hesitant to talk about it or lead conversations about it. So if you could do things within your own organisation to break down those barriers, to say that you don't have to be a elite hacksaw to come in and talk to people about stuff. Do some lunch and learns, watch some videos together. Sit down and watch a couple episodes of Mr. Robot together or something. Just get people talking about it and have it something that's fun and exciting. Someone will naturally gravitate to it more than others, and then you latch onto them and say, hey, you look like you're really enjoying this stuff. Would you like to start heading up a special team, or a team of experts to I don't know, or just we need someone who's going to put some time and effort into looking how the outside world of security testing and vulnerabilities and all that sort of thing is relevant to us. Can you do it, and can you take someone with you as well?
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, echoing those themes from Kate about gaining interest, giving prompts for that interest to happen, and then nurturing it when you see it. Vickers, is there anything you wanted to add on that one?
Yeah, I suppose with the security champions, it is their responsibility within the team, but it doesn't stop the others from looking at security aspects. Everyone's welcome to reach out to the security team. So we try and increase collaboration so that the rest of the dev team can feed off from the specialist security team that we have. So we try and encourage that a lot. We've organized a couple of lunch and learns where we've had the security team present or what top 10 vulnerabilities to us. This is to the entire company, whoever's interested. Just increasing their awareness, so they're reachable to anybody, not just the security champion.
Awesome. And this links a little bit with the idea of vulnerability. That in our organisations, that we find it difficult to stand up and say, I don't know how to do this, or this is hard, help. But security, more than anything, needs us to be able to do that, to get rid of the other vulnerabilities in our software. Welcome to our littlest panel member today, who is most welcome at any time. I will just share my cat, just in case she wants to see. Okay, keeping it professional at all times. We'll move on to our next question. I hope that helped you, James, with yours. So I'm going to go back to the official question list just for a second, because I'm quite conscious of time. It's got some really great flow in this, so thank you, everyone. A bit of a subjective question here. Do we think, panelist team, that you need to be a big company to do security testing? Or can it be something that big companies or small companies can do?
I'd say big and small companies can do. But in my experience, I entered this world of security only after having been exposed to it through the training that we had, and also having the security team driving it. But once I explored a bit of that, you can quite easily do that even if you're a small company, even if you didn't have a dedicated, a massive company that would have the budget to sponsor an exclusive security team, you could still, there's so much stuff on the internet, on the OWASP site, even how they come up with acceptance criteria, various abuse cases, lots of really simple things that's freely available on the internet. Even if you're in a small company, you could pick these things up and include that as part of your SDLC. But I suppose just having that awareness and somebody driving it is key.
Absolutely.
And I would add that it depends, right? As usual.
I'm going to start fining you, Kate. Every time you say it, I'm going to put a coin in a jar.
No. So it depends on terms of what kind of security testing you are developing. So I vote for shifting security to the left. We all heard that we need to shift testing to the left. But I would say let's shift security to the left. Let's educate everyone. Let's educate ourselves. Let's educate the developers about security, because after all, they are putting problems in the code, not us, right? That's one thing. So we can start with a proper security mindset, just, I don't know, looking for, because OWASP securities are really good and well, but there are even more obvious things like personal information in the logs. That's something that we can catch up very early. And another thing is that actually, if you want to do a proper pen testing, that probably it's a bit too much for you. It's not your cup of tea, and maybe it makes sense to just get some money and get professionals to do this, because it's one-time activity. But the main thing is, when you do pen testing, you must follow up, because if you do pen testing and you don't do follow-up, you just wasted money. Your software is no more secure than it was before.
I think there's a lesson in that for all of us, whether we're a big company or a small company, whether we've spent on external testing or spent our budget to do it internally. We have to make sure that we get that return on investment by acting on the results. And that's not just fixing the vulnerabilities, but looking at the processes that led to it to make sure that we don't try and get the same flaws in our code again, in the same way we would with any kind of bug, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of think of that question, do you have to be a big company to do security testing, or can you be a small team too? There's one side of it is, how do you define security testing? Well, if you're going to be a full-blown penetration tester, it might be harder if you're a team of 5 and a small startup or something. But in a way, I think it's actually, first off, no, you don't have to be a big company. Small companies can do security testing too. And I think it's actually most likely easier to do security testing in a small company because you're more adaptive. There's less huge big hierarchies and structures that you have to break into, saying, oh no, we don't have a team for that, we don't have the OPEX for that, we don't have the CAPEX for that sort of thing. It's just hey, I've looked into this thing, it's really important. And in smaller teams, you tend to be able to mix and mingle a lot more freely with the other teams and team members, and get involved with what they're doing, and kind of look over the shoulder and see what they're doing and saying, oh hey, that looks really cool. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So I think it's absolutely possible as a small company. If it's already baked into a big company, then that's dead easy. I think it may be a bit harder to introduce to a large established company because of all the rules and regulations around how the organisation is structured. So yeah, if that's
awesome.
useful.
I'm just going to pull some key points out of that, because I thought you said some really great things there, Michael. Things like use your size as a superpower. If your company is small, so you don't have a lot of resources, but you can move really fast and you can adapt quickly, then use that to do security. If you're big and have resource, it's great, it's going to get you a step ahead, but only if you can work the systems to get it. So whatever stage you're at, there is a little bit of security to bring to your world. What are the things as a group you think we could do to make it easier for us to bring security into our testing practice? If you could have anything in the world, what would you ask for to make this easier?
Well, I would ask for just like starting with asking really, simple questions like don't rely on others for security, and don't mix up compliance with security. The thing that you are compliant, it doesn't mean that you are secure. I believe that many of you have heard that Westpac Australia are facing a very hefty fine of $1.5 billion. Do you know why? Because they were fully compliant, but they didn't have the security mindset. So they had 23 million transactions, microtransactions, where they didn't they allowed it to slip under the radar, so they were not recording who is making these transfers, and it resulted in sponsoring, say, child prostitution in Eastern Asia. So were they compliant? Yes. Were they secure? No. And So if you can do some simple math, each breach is $3,000. They have 23 million breaches. You can do the calculations yourself. So 1.5 billion. It's a good thing. So just keep in mind the screw ups like this, because if you are fully compliant, independently whether you're a small company or a big company, it doesn't mean you're secure. Another thing is think how to keep your people happy. Because again, here I will give you a Westpac example, because that's my most recent experience. I think you also all heard last week about the Westpac demerger, right? It was all was new. So Westpac is not going anywhere. It's a really great idea for us to become a first large independent bank in New Zealand. So we just like demerge means that Westpac New Zealand will be an independent bank, completely in New Zealand owned, and all the money will go to New Zealand, not to Australia. But how did it happen? Because there was a disgruntled employee who was at the senior leadership meeting somewhere in Australia, and he leaked data to the press, and press made a huge mess out of it. Another thing that to keep in mind: keep your people happy, and just don't do bad things to them. Another simple thing: what can go wrong? Ask yourself what can go wrong. Does enabling debug mode in my logs leak the personal identifiable information into somewhere in the cloud? So just keep asking yourself these little questions. You don't necessarily need to be a security pro, right? But just remember about the basic things that didn't go really well last time, and just keep improving with every single time. So that would be my thing.
I think there's a great message there, Kate, in the learning the lessons that others have learned the painful way. So every time you see a news story, it's not an opportunity to say, hey, we're better than that. It's an opportunity to sit back and go, how could that have been us? And as testers, that's an opportunity to expand our testing to make sure that we're validating, verifying that that's not us, whether that's data in our logs or it's breaching some other compliance. How about you, Michael or Vickers? What would you change if you're going to try and improve bringing security to testing and you could have anything in the whole world? What would you do?
I'd say I'm big on training. With experience that our teams have benefited big time on training. So I definitely on training budget, more training budget. And second thing is time. We always need time. If the Scrum teams are always just churning out features to customers all the time, constantly being busy with that, there's just no capacity to look at other non-functional side of things. So I'd say time within the software development lifecycle to look at these non-functional side of things. So training budget and time.
Yeah, that time one's tricky. I really, I feel that one. More hours, please. Michael?
Yep. I guess personally, I'd like more skills in security testing. I'd love to have like an arsenal of penetration testing skills and abilities, so I could walk into work and be like, oh, hey, you know that thing you ignored? Poof, guess what? Whoops. Lucky you backed up. So bring it back together so you can demonstrate vulnerabilities. I think that'd be a lot of fun. It'd be quite cool. But yeah, I guess echoing what Vickers and Kate were saying, people in software, be it testers, be it BAs, be it developers, be it anyone, we're all very thirsty for knowledge. People love learning things. I think one of the biggest reasons for people shifting, well, I guess the two big reasons for people moving jobs is to get a pay rise, but the other one is to learn more things, to keep yourself challenged. And security is a cool field because there's always something new. There's always a new vulnerability. There's always, there's never going to be a day where suddenly we can close the book on security and go, everything's been found, everything's completely secure, it's all nailed down, we can put that one to bed now. So there's always space to learn, and people love learning. A lot of people, I've heard they say when you stop learning, that's when you start dying, especially in software. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that really answers the question, but I guess probably repeating myself from the other questions, but making the space safe to talk about security and fun to talk about security, getting people involved in it, and then I guess, and I haven't been paid by a SafeStack or anything to say this, but getting someone like Laura to come in and talk to you. So it's all well and good to have conversations about security, but have someone to come in and say, well, that's all great, and this is how it tailors to your organisation. There are other security providers available.
Absolutely. Just to be clear, no panelists have been paid today. This is, to be clear, we are trying to do this as an agnostic thing, and I'm happy to provide links to other security training providers and other things. So please check out the links on the side.
The only thing that I could just be, again, 100% clear, training itself doesn't mean much. It's what you learn of it and how you use it. Because if you overwhelm people with trainings, they won't follow up on them.
That's a good point, Kate. What makes good security training? If you were going to kind of bring it to your team right now, and let's ignore external providers for a second. If you had to go to your team and share some security knowledge, do you know what does your community look for in training? What would a QA person want from that training?
It's an interesting question, because as technical people we would probably jump into the how, but we usually need to start with the why. We need to start with the why. Why is because the why gives us the buy-in. Why gives us understanding what security threats are most likely to happen. And the why will also kind of guide us as to where apply the security effort just like the best, because we are very limited in time, and understanding the why I think is way more important than the tools, because with the tools we can always go and just lend a hand from someone like SafeStack or other companies. But if we don't understand the why, we won't be able to explain them what needs to be done, right? So I would say explaining the why and using a simple language. I hate when people start talking about security with all the whole lot of acronyms and stuff like this. You might do this, might do that, showing a bunch of tools. Because people, they will just like regular people, they will shut down completely. They will stop understanding. They will think, oh, I'm dumb. I don't understand all the thing. I will just go and just like it's not good for me. So for me, training should follow up to three important things. First, the why. Second, simple language. And third, how are we going? So some practical advice, how you can use whatever you learned on this training straight away, starting tomorrow.
Awesome. That's a really good set of things. Your clear motivation, your why, your clear language, and that really actionable steps. Vikas, what would you like to add?
I echo what Kate's saying on keeping it simple, especially when you're introducing security testing as a topic. Definitely start with the basics. That's a big one, otherwise people will shut down, like what Kate was saying. The other thing that works well is hands-on, has to be hands-on. If there's a theoretical concept, it has to be followed by, even if it's really simple, like a simple exercise, so that concept solidifies. You try it out and then you feel like, oh, okay, I've understood this. And it just sticks around for a lot longer. And the third thing is for persons who have are in a position to put together processes and that support the team by giving them opportunities to use this. Like for example, when we took our security champions on this training, it was soon after that we implemented the AppSec framework, the application security framework, and they could use all the stuff that they had learned in the training straight away within their teams as part of the application security framework, working with the security team. So that way they've learned this stuff and they're doing stuff with it. So that training is useful.
Fantastic, absolutely. Michael, anything from your side?
Yeah, pretty much just what Kate and Vikas has said there, that you got to strip away all the jargon, strip away all the tools and that sort of thing, because once you start rattling off saying, oh, you have to have burps, or you have to blah 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 blah, people are going to say, oh wow, look, I'm going to have to put 3 years to this, and I don't have that time, I don't have that sort of bandwidth, I've got a lot of other stuff to do, I've got a full-time job and family and yada 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 yada. But you boil it down to, why is security testing important? Why is it important for our organisation, not just like a a big, broad, this is why it's important for the world, and make it safe and make it fun, make it, I guess, accessible for people so they can ask questions without feeling dumb about it. No one wants to go to these training things and coming out feeling like a noob. And I think it's a particularly prevalent problem with security testing, that you think it's all these uber geeks that have been cutting code since they were in the womb, sort of thing. It's you got to break down those barriers, make it fun for people, and watch out for skill fade. So have safe environments for people to try things out, to ask questions of people, and ask questions of their code and of their applications. And there's plenty of stuff out there, like the OWASP Juice Shop and the Damn Vulnerable web app, and a handful of others. I'm sure 3, 2, 1 Shirley. Not quite. There's plenty of resources out there that you can play with, but I guess have your organisation welcome that sort of stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. And some really good take-homes here, right? And clear messages. So if you are watching at home or you're watching on the replay later, these are the things we're looking to find. So you're finding that clear voice. We're keeping the language simple, not because we don't understand it, but because we're going to get straight to the point, make that clear and not disengage people. And touching on Mike's point about skill fade, security is like any other technical domain. You have to keep those skills topped up over time. So giving access to training that keeps updated is going to be really key too. Now I've got 5 minutes remaining, or just short, about 4 minutes. Are there any other questions from the crowd, or any other last closing comments from our panelists? Please use the Ask a Question button at the bottom. And remember, if you haven't completed the polls yet, please pop in there and place your votes so that we've got all of our answers. So any closing comments from you three?
I would recommend subscribing to Laura, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever, and subscribing to Troy Hunt, again, because both of them are explaining security in a very simple terms, and they are very active. Just like as simple as that. Again, remember, when you start in with the security, just don't think it's something unsurmountable that you can't imagine, whatever. Take the first small step. And this first small step was just like signing up for a Twitter. It's not a big deal, right? You can do it. You can click this button. You can sign up and read the tweet. And this will nudge you in the right direction already, because you can read something that just clicks and you, oh damn, I've seen this. We need to fix this because it's a security threat. It's as simple as this.
I love it, Kate. I love the enthusiasm and the passion, and for you sharing so openly about the experiences you've had at Vend and at Westpac. So thank you so much for that. I'm hoping even just a fraction of your enthusiasm is contagious with our watchers today. Michael, anything from you, or Vikas?
Thanks, Mike. Hey, so I'd say the OWASP site's really good. It's been around a long time, and there's a lot of stuff in there that's explained in plain English. It's not hard to comprehend, so I definitely recommend having a look at that. And there's simple things in there that you can pick up and start playing around in your day jobs. Along with that, there's great conferences around testing in New Zealand. I think the OWASP ones, there's also KawaiiCon, it's called different things every year. I suppose Laura would be able to tell a bit more about that, I guess. But I'd say going to these conferences, even though I belong to this testing space, I try and go to security conferences, DevOps conferences, because there's a lot of great stuff in there that you can pick off. Yeah.
I think those are really good points. So just to echo the key messages there. OWASP does have some phenomenal resources. Just off the top of my head, thinking here, we have the OWASP testing guide. So they have an entire book you can go read on bringing security into your testing world. They have cheat sheets for every type of security testing you can possibly imagine, from mobile to web applications and Internet of Things. So lots to explore, but take your time, because it's easy to overlook things there. About the conferences, I don't organise those. One of my co-founders, Erica Anderson, is in charge of KawaiiCon. But to take Vika's message there, don't be afraid to go to a community that's not your own to learn. Just because it's more comfortable and easier to be around all your QA friends, it doesn't mean it's the only place you're welcome, and I certainly find the security community very welcoming. So if you're ever in one of those spaces and you see one of us, do come and say hello. We're always happy to kind of hang out with you and kind of make you feel at home in our community, just as you would do in yours. Michael?
Yeah, big time. That broaden your horizons, and it's a cliche, but really muck in with other conferences, other Slack channels. Like find InfoSec NZ is quite a nice one. But if you're, I guess, a bit hesitant to dive to take the red pill or the blue pill, forget which one it is, and go all right the way into security testing. One resource I found that was really helpful, and particularly if you could do it with a group of people that are keen to get into this, perhaps team up with one of the 77 people in this talk. The Ministry of Testing does the 30 days of X testing every now and then, and a few years ago they did the 30 days of security testing, and it was for every day of the month. There's a challenge. Don't force yourself to. Well, unless you are really, really keen to do one a day, do one a week, one a fortnight, or whatever. And that's how I got interested in security testing, because security was always fascinating for me. But I thought, I'm not smart enough for that sort of thing. I don't know enough about that. I haven't been in that world. I don't speak that language. And so I looked over the challenges and I thought, I'm going to give it a go. And then started writing a blog about my learnings from it. And it's probably arts and crafts, kindergarten stuff, but when I found that I was doing these challenges and then trying to explain it to people from my own kind of circle, my own kind of exposure to security, I found I dive in a little bit deeper to find out exactly what I'm trying to explain. So that was quite a good way to just get a nice base level of understanding. And one day I'd love to go all the way with security, because it's a really fun space. But just immerse yourself in it. Get in podcasts, get in videos. There's a lot of fun stuff out there, and you don't have to be an expert to enjoy it. So.
Absolutely. And so there's a link in the chat for things of that 30 days of security testing if you want to go check that out. And just kind of echoing what's come through here, there is space in security for everyone. And whether you want to go deep and become a penetration tester, or whether you're interested in just bringing it to your functional security practice as an additional set of acceptance criteria, there is room for all of us. And the more of us do a little bit, then our combined efforts add up to a huge change in the way that we do security testing. So I'm really excited by the 77 people joining us today, and by our great team of panelists. I'm incredibly grateful for your time and for your thoughts. And I'd invite you people to check out the video for this when it goes up, and the links that we've linked alongside, and share them with your communities, because we're only a small subset today, and there's a lot of people out there who could benefit from these kind of things and expand their practice. Just as an exciting announcement, the reason we're doing this panel this week is that this week we're releasing our first security testing course, so Security Foundations for Software Testers, as part of SafeStack Academy. So it's been a wonderful opportunity today to remind ourselves of why this matters and why it's so important there's good quality training out there. So whatever pathway you're on, however far you are into your security journey, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you'll join us again soon for another panel, and you can find ways to practically bring security to your world. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.